Tackling the emotional resonance of suicide, self-isolation, and depression is difficult enough, but doing it within the 22-page confines of a funny book, that's one more reason that Image Comics is the boldest publisher in the game. Hola amigos, this is your local comic book Mustachio. I hope everyone had a very splendid holidays and is ready to enjoy this new year and ring in the festivities within this week. I'm going to let everybody know New Year's Eve is new comic book day. There are very minimal amounts of releases this week, so I'm going to use this next week and a half or so to catch up on some books that may or may not have come out this week or on New Year's Eve that I have missed this month. I've had a very busy schedule. A lot of things have happened. I've tried to get at least 2 or 3 reviews in every week, but there's a lot of really great stuff that I missed out on, like Witches number 3, especially the new Batman. I'm only saying Scott Snyder stuff for some reason, but there's more. I just can't think of them. But I'm going to come to you with reviews of things that may or may not have come out this week. Hopefully you're interested in those things, and if not, I don't really care because I'm going to publish them anyway, and hopefully you will all enjoy them. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, I must welcome you to a review of another new Image Comics series, They're Not Like Us number 1. They're Not Like Us is written by one of the chief editors at Image Comics, Stephenson, with beautiful illustrations from artist Simon Gane. In They're Not Like Us number 1, our main character, this girl, has been ostracized from her family, doesn't seem to get along anywhere, and we see her trying to kill herself in the very first panel of the issue. Failed attempt, but we still see it. A mysterious character comes to try and rescue her, visits her in the hospital after her failed suicide attempt, and brings her to a very luxurious mansion where she meets other people who all have telekinetic powers of sorts. She finds out that the voices that she's been hearing inside of her head don't make her crazy all along, and those are actual voices, that she is a telepath, and that this is a house to embrace those powers, kind of skirting outside the boundaries of the law, and in the end is asked to do something very, well, you'll see. What a cliffhanger of an ending. This comic deals with issues such as suicide and depression. Stephenson writes another book, Nowhere Men. I think 5 or 6 issues came out. They were very few and far between. The artist for that series, we've recently found out, is suffering from severe depression and is a friend of Stephenson's. It's dealt with rather gracefully and very true to life in this. This kind of stuff is something that I have a really close connection to in a lot of ways. Not necessarily for me myself, but people within my life, and I know plenty of people who suffer from very severe issues with depression, suicide attempts, and all sorts of tragic things. This issue deals wonderfully with the character's inner monologue and the way she speaks when she's at her lowest low. And as she's talked out of her lowest low, those small feelings of redemption that you hear from our character feels very authentic, feels very real, and it's done very gracefully. And they tackle a really crazy issue for a funny book very well within the pages. Simon Gane, the artist, don't know where he came from. I might be, just losing my mind. Almost like a Paul Pope meets Frank Whiteley kind of feel to the artwork. Jordi Belair on the colors. Really cool stuff. Almost a European kind of feel. I say Frank Whiteley because of the faces. I say Paul Pope because of the overall kind of sketchiness to it, reminding you that this is a sketched piece of artwork. There's a really cool full page in the hospital room that we see from Gane's art. Very cool stuff, especially for a comic that has very, very little action in it. There's a lot of good things going on in this issue. The topics that it does address, real-world problems that are very serious. It addresses them very well, very articulately, and very gracefully. It skirts around some real-deal stuff that's very hard to talk about, and you don't normally ever see in a comic book. One of the reasons why its publisher, Image Comics, is the boldest, in my opinion, publisher in the game, because we are seeing things that you normally never see within this medium of sequential art. Storytelling being brought forth in Image, it really does have something for everyone. You can give this book to someone who doesn't normally read comics, who may or may not have dealt with a battle with depression and suicide themselves, know someone, but they might not read comics. This might be something that would interest them. They have westerns, they have sci-fi, they have superheroes. They really do have everything, and I couldn't help it but think while reading They're Not Like Us #1, how this is just another example, and a really good example, about how Image Comics has the most diversity out of any comic book publisher. I'd almost say ever. I've never seen so much variety of output actually being published ever, I can think of, in the history of comic books. Interesting story, great writing, really, really top-notch art. That is my favorite part of this issue. I'm going to talk about a downfall of it. After her suicide attempt, when she finds out she does have these powers, and she is brought in to this house, this mansion, with all these other people who have these abilities, and you find out that there's almost like this kind of school, almost like the Xavier School in X-Men. That felt rather unoriginal. I'm reading a book called Deadly Class by writer Rick Remender and artist Wes Craig, which is a school for misfits being trained as assassins. The concept of this sounds like it could be going in a very similar direction to the overall idea of a series like Deadly Class, or like I had said before, with the Xavier School for the Gifted, for the Mutants, for the X-Books. So it kind of felt almost unoriginal in that sense, but it was very well written. It was very compelling. It is a book that you can give to someone who's not necessarily a comic book fan. If they're fans of books like Perks of Being a Wallflower, Catcher in the Rye, those real coming-of-age style stories, definitely try and give a person this book if they're into that sort of thing and you want them to read a comic book. If you want to give someone a comic book and say, hey, here's a prime example of how what you think and those stereotypes about the industry may or may not be true. There are publications that don't have capes and tights and are very different, very articulate, and very well written. This is a great book to give those kinds of people. But like I said, unfortunately, this book's concept, its big idea, did feel very similar to Deadly Class and kind of like the X-Books, even though it was well written and incredibly drawn. I will be around for #2. Hopefully it comes out. Stephenson's other book, even though I heard it was, kind of the artist's fault, but Stephenson's other book, Nowhere Men, which I love, one of my favorite new series of the past few years, hardly ever comes out. So hopefully this it doesn't get backed up like Nowhere Men. Even though I loved it, I'm coming back for a #2 because of that similar tone. I'm going to have to give They're Not Like Us 3 sombreros. Solid rating. 3 sombreros. If If you have a friend or family member who's giving you grief about reading funny books about people in capes wearing tights, try and give them They're Not Like Us from Image Comics. Solid stuff, really different comic book. If you want to read comic books like this, find a local comic shop near you. Go to comicshoplocator.com, type in your zip code, find a local comic book store, and support it. If you can't find one, and you must, download your comics digitally. It's really easy. Use the Comixology app. It's available for both Android and iOS marketplaces, or better yet, you can get free comic books by visiting your local library. It's really easy, kids, and remember, knowledge is power. Real quick, I gotta thank my homeboy Tony, the Black Critic guy. Check out his YouTube channel. He is celebrating having 30,000 subscribers, which is crazy. He had a little fiesta yesterday, and he invited this pretty mustache onto there. So, check out the Black Critic guy on YouTube. Until next time, I hope you all enjoy your Red Ryder BB guns. Don't shoot your mustache out. Adios, brochachos. See you next time.
I got something to say.